Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. My name is Brittany Cohill. I'm the Executive Director of Mandarin Museum and Historical Society, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our third Thursday lecture for the month of April, featuring our good friend, Vina Schemer. I have gotten to know Vina over the course of, I guess, this last year or so when we started talking about doing this exhibition. And I came to Vina through her dear friend Nofa Dixon, who I'm sure many of you know. And so I got to sit at Vina's home, have many conversations with her, many conversations with Vina and Nofa. And if you have never listened in on that conversation before and you have the opportunity, I encourage you to do so. I've learned so much, not just about Vina's work, but about Jacksonville's art history in general and how rich and how deep it runs. And Vina is such a major part of that. And so it really is just our honor to have been able to exhibit Evolution in Clay for the last 6 months. And you're in for a real treat. I've got to witness several private gallery tours with Vina as she's talking to friends and visitors about her pieces, the stories behind them, her technique, and each time I listen in, I learn something new, and I have no doubt I'm going to learn something new this evening as well. This is her short bio, and I know she'd probably be somewhat embarrassed if I read the entire thing, but there are so many noteworthy things on here that I do want to mention. She's been a studio potter and photoceramicist since 1962, and she has her Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree and has been a pottery teacher since 1964, and I believe you founded the pottery program at the JCA as well. And she was a 37-year board member of the American Crafts Council Southeast Region.
Director.
Gabrielle, I don't ever want to hear you complaining about how long you've been on our board. 37 years. From 1979 to 2009, she was the American Crafts Council Southeast Regional Director. She has lived in Mandarin since 1965. And it took until 2024 for me to meet Vina, but now she's never going to get rid of me. I know where you live. And actually, my best friend lives one street over, so we're just going to pop in, here and there. She's been featured in so many magazines and books. You've seen in there on the wall where she was featured in John Kenny's ceramics miniatures, and her work is in collections of private collectors, corporate collections, the White House, University in North Florida, and forgive me, what's the name of the incredible museum in Italy that also houses the Contemporary Ceramics Museum in
Grottaglie.
Thank you, Vina. Italy. So many accolades that we could sit here and talk about. But what I'd really like to do now is introduce our dear friend, Vina Schemer.
Thank you. And if we're going to give special accolades, we need to give it to Brittany. She came and said that, invited me to be part of an exhibition here at the museum. And then she picked up the stuff, and different people brought what they needed to bring to go for the show. And then the big night came, and I came early to see what it looked like because they wouldn't let me see it before. She wouldn't let me in.
You got here early.
I had to wait till the doors opened for everybody before I could go. And I was overwhelmed. I think she did an excellent, incredible job. Don't you think so?
You made it easy.
Thank you. I thought what I would do this evening is tell you how I work, because people don't really understand what goes on in an artist's studio. And there's, let's see here, if if I can figure this out. All right. When I first actually I first began with clay when I was about 4, but we don't count those years. We only we only count the years that this pot, I kept it, was the first piece that I ever entered into a major juried show, and it was at the Mint Museum in Charlotte, and got accepted. And in those days it was even harder than it is now to get accepted to a major show. And so that's how I worked. I'm a hand builder. I do not throw on the wheel. So if there are any questions about any of these as I am speaking, please ask. Just, I want this to be a sort of back and forth kind of thing. When I first began playing with designs, I had all these kind of different things that you find in a kitchen drawer that make a mark that you stick in clay, and so that's how the design on that pot happened. This one was just adding clay pieces. That's also very, very early. I made quite a few of those then also. This is when I was teaching at the Jacksonville Art Museum. I had a student who claimed he could do anything I could do. I said, okay. And even though I'm not a wheel potter, I made these, and they're in this room, and I don't know whether you've seen them or not, but they're only this big. And I will tell you the story of one of them. John Kenny has these in a book, he and Carla, and they came to my studio to photograph me while I was making this. And inside the exhibit, there are also pictures on the wall of pages of the book and me throwing. One of the pots, this one, is in the book, and another one was a bottle that probably maybe wasn't an inch tall. Regular little bottle, little spout, whole 9 yards. And when I finished making it, everybody in the room, the photographer, John, Carla, everybody else, were just totally amazed. The most amazed person in the room was me. When we started with raku, which is a Japanese form of pottery, where you make a piece out of usually a low-fired clay, and you fire it the first time, which is called bisque, at a low temperature, so that when you put it into anything that will burn and make carbon, which the pot sucks in, as you see on this one, and makes the design, it's what turns the pot black. I have several others that you will see in a moment. These. Notice that my stamp designs got a little more sophisticated. Takes a couple of decades, and there you are. And I even brought some tonight to show you, and you pass around and show you what my stamps look like. I make my stamps. I make them out of clay, and I carve them. I had this wonderful dentist, and he used to give me broken tools, and I use dental tools are wonderful for carving anything at all. And so where the black part is where the carbon sucks into the clay while it's hot. You put the clay, after it's been bisqued and cooled, back into a kiln that you can reach into with tongs. And I have fireman's uniform kind of thing that I wear over me. And with tongs, you take it out of the kiln when it's about 1400 degrees, and you put it in sawdust. We've discovered sawdust works the best. You can use pine straws or leaves or anything else that'll burn and make carbon. And you cover it, and when it starts smoking, you know that it's getting black, that the pot itself is sucking in the carbon, and then you take it out of the sawdust and you hit it with a spray of a hose or something slowly, because if you hit it too hard, too fast, it'll break. It'll just bust apart. My pots are made by coils. You roll out a coil and you put a coil down and then another on top and another on top, and then you wait a little while so it sets up, because if you work it too fast, it'll slump. So I usually, when I'm in my studio and I'm making pots, I always make 2 or 3 at a time. And that doesn't mean 2 or 3 a day. It means like 2 or 3 that you're working on that day, and hopefully in a day or 2 or 3 or 4, you will have 3 pots. Here's some more raku. Sometimes I glaze them, and these are all little carved pieces that I stamp.
Vina, how do you control what's black and what's not black?
With the glaze. All right. Where there's glaze, it's not black. Also, it's shiny. And where there's not glaze, it's matte because it's the clay. It's probably not a good idea to put them in sunshine, because eventually the sun will seek out the carbon and it'll fade. So usually if you have any piece that, even, the Japanese pieces, they use them for teacups, and they make the design around them so that when they take a drink and hand it to you so that you take a drink, it's got design on both sides.
Oh, nice.
And when is the design part done? Before it goes in the kiln?
The design is on it when the clay is wet. Tell you a secret about me that a lot of people don't know. I make them upside down. I actually cut a circle of clay and do the design and turn it upside down and start working the coils. And when I get it finished all the way to the bottom, I turn it back over, cut out the circle that's going to be the opening in the top, and add a coil or whatever to the top.
Wow.
Vina, are there different kinds of clay for different pots? Different kinds of clay for different kinds of pots, or is it clay is clay, or whatever you use?
Do they what?
Different kind of clay for different kinds
Oh, yeah. Yeah, raku is a lower fire clay. Because if you use a high fire, all right, there are different levels of clay. There's real low fire, like raku. In fact, if the clay isn't, if it's too hard when you bisque it, even at a low temperature, it won't absorb the carbon. So what you have to do is you have to mix a little sand in it. Now Charlie Brown, a lot of his older pots, in fact for years and years, he did raku, and he used to go down to the St. Johns River somewhere and dig his own clay, and it'd come right out of the river full of sand. He didn't have to do anything in it but wedge it, and wedge it is, let's see.
Like kneading dough.
Yeah, it is. It's like
a wire that you kind of throw the slide.
Yeah, you do that to get the air bubbles out of it, but you knead it like you do. In fact,
Wow.
I like to make pasta, and I think, okay, I got to wedge this this dough till it gets to the right consistency.
That's funny.
All right, now I decided I'd make some that had a little different shape. They're flatter. And I played with the designs. I got really involved in designs, made lots and lots of them. Some were raku and some weren't. And I don't think I have one that's not here, except when I started putting photos on them. When I was about 10 years old, somebody gave me I guess I was younger, because I used to take pictures of my brother Michael, and he's 9 years younger than me, when he was a baby. Maybe when I was 8, someone gave me a Brownie camera, and I love photography. And I've always taken pictures of something, whether you're on a trip to Mexico or Italy or wherever. I just love photography. I was about 55 years old or older before I figured, you know what? I could do photography with clay. I've been both of them separate for years and years and years. And okay, how long does it take me to figure out? So I decided, okay, now to begin with, I had to figure out how to get glazes through a silk screen. So to start with, the pieces, let me see if they were high contrast because I couldn't figure out any other way to do them except high contrast. And then I found from Eastman Kodak made a little piece of photo material. It came like on a film that was the dot pattern. Now a lot of you remember when the newspapers, all the pictures were done in dot patterns? Okay. And big poster signs were also done in huge dot patterns. And the thing about it is that dot patterns will blow up. They don't multiply as they get bigger and bigger. Those that were in tinier places stay tiny, and those that need to be larger get larger when you put them in your enlarger and blow them up. Where the age of the new cameras and pixels no longer needed the dot pattern. And so Kodak quit making the dot pattern, and I couldn't get it anymore. And we've tried and figured out many different ways to get the dot on a computer, and we still haven't gotten it to work exactly the way I want. Because pixels, what happens with them as you blow them up, more pixels get added to it, so it blows it up bigger and bigger, and it's not the same amount that you started with. So to start with, I had to just do high contrast. And I did them on the shape of the ones that I had been playing with. It's sort of, you do a lot of them. You know, I do like 50 or something before it starts changing. It just evolves. Oops.
Who are these? Who is it? Anybody in these pictures? People you know?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, that little girl is, I don't know how many of you know Allison Watson. She's a painter, excellent painter. All right, it's her grandmother. Pictures. Lucy Borden.
Wow.
And this is Nijinsky. And I used to go through,
Let me take your clicker, the clicker. I think we advanced, sorry to interrupt. I don't want to miss anything.
Okay.
So here.
Okay. All right. That's Lucy Borden again. She's the same one that was, this is just a little kid with a violin, and that was my husband when he was about 3 or 4.
Wow.
And then they started moving from this shape to my old shape again, with the designs and stamps going around.
You know, what inspired that initial shape? Every time I look at it, I just think of a piece of candy. But what led you to that shape?
Well, the first shape that's in there, that's actually the first one that you come to, looks like a mushroom. And it's that mushroom shape that picked up and moved up. Are you talking about this shape? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so instead of having a foot from the middle, it came down and went up. This was also the era of dried weeds that somebody always had a weed pot where you'd go traveling through wherever. And especially in the fall, when you'd see flowers that turned to little black weeds with long stems, and people would get them and they'd stick them in the top. Okay, now the next one. Oh, okay. That is my mom and dad in their wedding picture. And I made quite a few, then people discovered that I could make wedding pictures on pots.
Lucky you.
After about 23, I said, no more wedding. I don't care when they were married. If they could be married in the 1700s, I don't want to see pictures. But anyway, I went through that. This was very interesting. The Clintons, when they were in the White House, were very much into American everything. And they decided that they wanted to have only American artists make the decorations for the White House tree.
Wow.
And so they got people from all the different states. I think because I happen to know, when I was the head of American Craft Council for all those years, especially when I was director, we used to have a keynote speaker come to our conferences every year. And I knew Michael came from, what is the gallery next to Lincoln Center? The big one in New York. Anyway, Michael Monroe was the director of the gallery, and I asked him to speak as our keynote speaker. Oh, he gave a wonderful speech, I have to tell you this. It was called, let's see what it was called. It was called The Ones Who Were Juried. It was called The Juror, the Awards, the Hanging. And he gave this hysterical keynote speech about art. And we had a spotlight show, incredible artists then anyway. Getting back to the Clintons. So I'm sure that Michael gave my name to them, and that's how they got me. Although there were quite a few people from Jacksonville who had put pieces in the show. And you weren't allowed to make another one exactly like it, but I made two of them similar and then picked the one that I thought would be the best for them. By the way, if you have ever tried to get a package in the White House, I mean, it's easier to send one to Russia, I think. I mean, they have to know everything about you, where you were born, how old you are, have you ever been in the armed service? I mean, but anyway, so I did this one, and that happens to be me at 3.
Oh, wow.
And the,
Was that an ornament?
it's an ornament. It hangs from the top.
That's beautiful.
And
Roses.
the one that I sent was a little bit smaller, but a little bit fancier. I think I had some roses around the bottom edge too, like I have around the top. They're 3-dimensional.
I have a question about the one on the left. When I was looking at it, the shape is unlike all of the other vases, and it looks like 2 pieces put together. What is the
3.
3 shape?
Ah,
Yeah, it's like a bottle shape, and then a piece on top, and then another piece on the other side. Yeah, and then a cutout in one of them, on one of the pieces that I added. I made quite a few of those, but they weren't as exciting to me. Anyway, yeah, and then so this is also when I was doing photography. I had found the dot pattern, but I hadn't let loose with them yet. They were all in the background. I hadn't realized that I could use it more of a design of the pot than I could the design of the imagery. Okay. All right, this is the first one I cut loose, and that's Nijinsky. He was on a postcard, and it was when he was doing his slave ballet. And I did when I made the silk screens, I invented the way I worked, the way I did the photography and everything. And they were all either gray or sepia. And I was trying to figure out how to, once I got the part that I could make a silk screen with, I was trying to figure out what kind of glazes can I use, because glazes are usually dissolved in water, and water goes right through the screen and underneath your image and everything. So I used cocoa butter. I used, you know, cheap ladies' cold cream or whatever. And you have to do it real thin because it takes it a long time to dry. And I went back and put a little red on his heart and put some decals, regular decals on the top. I make a decal and I cut it out and I put it on the pots. And you have to plan, of course, ahead so that you don't get too squished together, so that they're all separated as they go all the way around the pot. And then Albert, that's Albert bringing in spring. I added a little bit more color to him, and you paint that on afterwards. This pot was probably fired, bisque fire, glaze fire, decal fire, and then the little red and the other decal. So 4. Some of them are fired 7, some of them are 8 different times, different temperatures. And you start with the lowest. You start the lowest with the bisque, that first, when it has nothing on it, and then you build up each firing with a little higher fire. Oops. Here we go. She was, oops, I didn't, just did it by itself. Okay, there we go. All right. She's also a ballerina from the Russian ballet. I brought the postcard that I have with her on it. I think it was 1910. And he was from a silent movie called The Slave. And someone asked me where I get them. I don't know. I just see them and I like them. And I thought, okay, let's see what this will do. I have had them where once I even got them all the way done, I decided I didn't really like them. Yeah.
What do you do with it then?
Yes, but you spent 5 days in a dark room to get it, and then when you got it and you don't like it, you get kind of mad at yourself. All right. This is Fighter Max, and this is before they fought with gloves on. So I don't know what era that is, the 20s? When did, guys, anybody know when they started?
Earlier than that, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they fought barehanded.
Bare knuckle, yeah.
And this is my pasta chef. And I've used him, well, it takes so long to make one that I don't use it once. But it will never be on the same looking kind of pot, ever.
You're talking about the dark room. What exactly did you do in the dark room?
The dark room is,
With the photographs, how did it?
I'm going to show you. I brought stuff that I did in the dark room, okay? All the way through decals. I brought some decals too for you to see how they look.
Oh, I love those.
That's John Philip Sousa and his band. And this is all of these are hand colored. And I brought some things to show you with her. Sometimes I do her leg going one way, and sometimes I do her leg going the other way. And I loved her image anyway. And she's a naughty girl, because that was like early 1900s when they wore bloomers and they wore these caps that came down around their face, and she was, you know, California.
That explains it.
So do you have an image in your head that you're then creating, or does the image talk to you and it becomes something?
A little bit of both. I see an image I like, and I think, okay. Oh, another thing about like these and any of the others. I thought about, all right, let's use, I could make this pot and I could put stripes all the way around it. Why not a human figure in the same way? Why not let that be the decorative part of your piece of pottery, you know? And so that's how these all got started.
It's a repeating pattern.
Yeah. So, you know, she's all the way around here, and so are they. And that one was really exciting to me because the image that they're throwing up in the air, he's turned different ways when you walk around the pot. And then that's when Kodak said, "Goodbye, little dot pad." So I haven't been
Just
able,
getting good then.
finally figured out what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. I love
Okay, is that it? Oh, no.
that. That's so
These are just fun things I did.
Used to make everybody.
This one is called He Followed Me Home, Can I Keep Him? And that's just a little boy with a balloon. This is, I don't know who, any of you, if you remember Florence Greenberg or not.
Yeah.
That's Florence on a horse when she was a little girl. She was in our gallery too. Yeah. And she always used to bring me flowers that she grew in her garden. And the other side of this pot's got the zinnias on it that she always used to bring. Yeah. It was a time I think everybody,
Sat on a
yeah,
horse.
sat on, well, she lived, I guess, in New York, and she said that they'd come around on the streets and people would pay $5 and get a picture of their kid on a horse or whatever. Yeah.
Except in Florida, you go to the gator.
Oops, let me go back. Oops. What am I doing here? All right. She's the same image as that one. She's on the one on the door. I just, like I said, I use them different so that they don't look alike. I happened to notice in today's paper that that is not Charlie Chaplin. It's Carly Chapman. She was in a Charlie Chaplin look-alike contest at 5, and you don't notice it till you realize she's wearing Mary Jane shoes.
Oh, that's so funny.
And they gave her a prize. I love her. I think she's great.
She is great.
And those are starlight. There was a starlight ball in the early 1920s, I guess, and they were dancers of the starlight ball. Charlie Chaplin's birth date today in today's paper was he was born 187 years ago today.
Really? Wow. Happy birthday, Charlie.
Yeah. These are actual garden sculptures, and originally they have long green, which probably wouldn't look that good, stakes that go in the ground, and that's what they look like on the other side. They have 2 different sides, so you can put them wherever you want. All right, I show these because there's Spider Max again, used in a different way. There's Nijinsky used in a different way. There's Carly Chapman used again in a different way. And these are the wall hangers. And this is another, she's a little later, but she's also, she's like 1930. So that's not too bad of a bathing suit for 1930.
Still pretty risky.
Okay. Oh, do we have pictures of?
Yep. If you
Okay. All right.
Yes, I remember.
The Jacksonville Art Museum had a Ramsey exhibit, and I was asked if I would make something that they could give away on their big dinner that they were going to have. I guess it was one that you get patrons to pay for lots of money for the dinner. And I originally was asked to make 100, and then I was asked to make 200 or 300.
Oh my God.
And then I ended up making 500, and
And there were scarabs all over the house. Just saying.
And may I add, my
This
dear,
gentleman right
because of you, we raised thousands and thousands of dollars.
oh, good, I'm glad. Good, I'm glad.
Someone gave us over $20,000. I gave him a solid gold one.
Oh, good. And you know that's real gold, that those,
I
yeah,
didn't, I know
Yes.
that, of course.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, yeah.
thank you.
You're
Wonderful
welcome.
woman.
Yeah,
that she
Vina,
never made
Yes.
it again.
who in the world made that gorgeous necklace that Brittany's got?
I did. Yeah, I made a few quite a few of those, and then we had them in the museum shop. You know, yeah.
Of all the different like Egyptian artifacts you could have picked, what drew you to the scarab?
Well, they're kind of interesting little creatures. They supposedly they take dung and they roll it around the world, and they're also up with the gods, and they're in most hieroglyphics here, there, and yon. And I just thought they were a pretty important image of Egyptian art. Yeah.
Yeah, and on the bottom, there's like a.
Oh, yeah.
crayfish
Yeah.
that's on the
Yes.
bottom
Yeah.
of the scarab, but I remember when I was here the other day, when you were here, because you did them in like some sort of a mold, and I think you said you had to go back and carve like each individual one to get sort of the detail a little bit better.
No, what happens is when I made them, I used to make them like an egg and cut them in half, and then carve them, and then but they would still be soft. So I made the cartouche out of clay the way I make my stamps. And there are two. There's one with his earth name and one with his pharaoh god name.
Oh, my God.
So, and I don't remember at the moment which one was which. But anyway, I pressed the cartouche to the bottoms of them, before they were fired the first time.
Wow. It's a lot of,
Yeah.
Were they all different?
amazing. They're gorgeous.
Yeah.
400? 500? Did you ever make any of those again?
No, I haven't.
That's wonderful.
Well, I made it. It helped me a lot because I had not made high gloss jewel glazes before, and I make a lot of my own glazes. In fact, most of my own glazes. So I thought, okay, let's put some of these on pots, and that's when I went to those jewel pots, and I call them jewel pots, that are in there with a little bit of the stamp design on the top, from one era moving into another, into the bullet shape jewel pot with the glazes that I got from making the scarabs. So, one thing follows another. Those are the jewel pots. They belong to Amy. Yeah. Let's see. See, I used them on those too. It was fun. You could get them to crackle just the way you have to get the kiln a certain temperature and then stop it. And then try not to let it cool down too fast so that you can get the little crackles. Had to do at least one Elvis.
Of course, absolutely.
I was telling some of y'all that we were in a gallery, the Craftsman Gallery, and one Christmas we decided to make something using what is our signature, our own personal. So I made a lot of mugs, and I made them with, it was called How Would You Like to Have Breakfast With? And I had a few women, but I don't even remember who they were. But for the guys, I had Cary Grant, and I had John Wayne, and I had Robert Redford, and I had all these really good-looking guys, and Einstein. And I sold more Einstein than more people wanted to have breakfast with Einstein than they did Cary Grant. I would much rather have had breakfast with Cary Grant. Anyway.
Relationship between Elvis Presley and those beds.
I did, on occasion, I do make kitchenware, but not very often. And I made beds, and I've made some pictures.
But tell them what they are.
They're butter dishes.
Oh, they are.
Yeah,
And what do you call them?
bread and butter dishes. Bed and butter dishes. Bed and butter dishes.
Cute, that's adorable.
And I guess that's it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
All right. Now I want to show you. like to show you how I do this, okay? Okay. Okay. This one first. All right, I had a SLR single reflex camera that took 35 millimeter film, and I would take pictures of whatever I wanted to take pictures of that I thought would look really good, and then I would do a contact paper so you could see what the images were going to look like, and then I would choose the image that I wanted, and I would go to that, let me see, that dot paper, and I would, I don't know how far back y'all can see this. See if this will work. And I would make the dot with the negative, and it would make a positive, okay? And then I would put the positive in my enlarger in the darkroom, and I would do a blow up of the image, and I'm doing it all of the same one here. These are some more of those dancers that would go to the Starlight Ballroom, I guess. And the dot pattern would let me blow up
Oh, yes, okay.
like this big. Right, this is the size I wanted to make my decal. And then I would go from, what I needed though to get to a silk screen is a positive. And Kodak also had a film, well, many colors, but I liked the orange. You could get the red, but the red was a little more expensive and it did the same thing, so we settled for the orange. And then you made the positive in the orange so that you could go to a silk screen, which would be a negative, so you could run your glazes through and get
Oh, my goodness.
and you ran it, the silk screen, through on gummed paper. It's the same paper that when you buy a decal anywhere of any kind, that it's got gum on it, and what happens is you then coat it with a thing called cover coat. And then for me, next is to decide where I want it and cut it out. So I have an image that I can now put around my pot. The cover coat seals the glaze onto the decal paper, the gummed paper, so that when you're ready to use it, you put it in water just like you do any other decal, and you watch it, and when it starts getting slippery, slidey, you take it and you slide it off onto the pot. And then you go back and you, I have this a little scraper I use for when I'm working in clay, and I make sure the air bubbles, there's no air bubbles in it, because if you get air bubbles in it and it dries, it will leave a round hole in your decal. And then when you get all the decals on there, you fire at one time, and then you have the first firing. And I wanted to show you a few others because
Are other people using this technique now?
I
or-
taught a lot when I was but I don't know if they are or not. I don't know if they are or not. Let's see, is this any? What's in this one?
It's amazing.
Okay, it's this one I wanted to show you.
The decal is flat and your surface is often round.
Yeah,
That'd
but
be very hard to do.
it's not that hard because they're soft. Do you remember that decals are soft? Yeah, so they rub round. I mean, yeah. This is the original,
Oh, yeah.
that's her. And this says Tamer Korsavina as the Firebird in 1910.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the one that you take the picture of to get the, and if it's too dark, you do what I did. You just take some whiting and white out so that you'll get good.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what took longer, making the pot or making
The pot,
the pot?
yeah,
But it was a long process.
yeah. And then you cut, you cut them out so that this is Fighter Max. And so you can, and you measure too. You have the pot here and you measure him here and here and here and here and here so that you don't get them too close together so they're spaced properly. I was going to tell you about the, let's see. All right, that.
I love
All right. And when I made the dotted one, and I made the orange copy.
Going that
Yeah,
way.
yeah, and I think I've got her in there going 2 ways. I have her one on a pot, see? And then I can take them both to the silk screen. Oh, I finally found a glaze that would go through silk screen. Just, I don't know whether, this is those big ones I showed you before. Can you see that or? Yeah.
Wow.
And then you just run your glazes through that onto the gummed paper.
You have a lot of patience.
You know what? It's more than patience. It's like each time it works, it makes you feel good. You think, well, I've done something. I'm not sure what I've done, but and if you really get involved, then your daughters have to cook. And they're both really good cooks. Okay. To run the glazes through a silk screen, you use a squeegee. This is not the squeegee I use. The one that I normally used, I looked at today. It's so pitiful looking. I said, I'm not bringing it. But anyway, you run the glazes through it onto the gummed paper. And then with the cover coat, I usually just put it on this and you just roll it on with a brayer. And then you just roll it over once or twice and then you let it dry and you buy it by the can. And it's decal cover coat, and there's a company who probably sells to every company that makes decals to use as cover coat. I wanted to show you especially 1 or 2 pictures in here that I've had. I was looking through these 2 today and wonder where some of the pots that these are now, Okay, is this the one? No.
People used to come to our house when she was doing the rakuing, where she would immerse the pot into the sawdust so that they would knock on our door and they would say, "Is your house on fire?" And we would say, "No, that's just our mother in the backyard."
That is so funny.
This is lots of images, but I wanted you to see this little boy. Bruce, Jurgen, and Kathy have the pot that this one's on. That's Charlie Brown when he was little. And his sisters gave me the picture, and they said, "Do one for me." I don't know where that pot is now either, but I did one for them, and I used it maybe 1 or 2 times after that.
Really sweet.
And then I was telling you about Christy Rogers. Yeah, this is her grandmother. She brought me, her name, I wrote it down here. Her grandfather's name was Joseph Locke in England, and he's glass blower, glass artist. And then his daughter is Nora Locke Williamson, and she is Christy Rogers, potter, teacher, grandmother. All right.
Wow.
And here's the 2 that I did for her. And put that on some pots for her. Can I show you a naughty one?
Oh, yes. Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, really. That's why we came.
Everybody over 18? It's art.
It is.
Art.
Someone went to Paris, and in an antique shop, they found an old French postcard. And they wanted me to do a pot for them using that postcard, and I did. And I don't have the pot, they do. So, oops. It's the top one.
It's French.
Sitting too far back.
But actually, she's a beautiful lady, and you can tell by the urn that's near her that it was like really early 1900, probably whatever.
Beautiful.
But anyway, it made a beautiful pot, and I never used it again. Just for them. Okay. Now, we'll get a little bit messy. Someone asked me what I work on. This is just pillow casing or whatever. And I have a table in my studio that's about this big, covered with this. So, and when I'm not using it for that, I take just, I used to be able to get it at Ready Arts. I don't know where I would get it now. Well, they're still in Springfield, aren't they? Yeah, okay. And I'd cover my table with white paper if we were using glue or any, color stuff. But this is really nice to work on clay. I build most of my pots. I have 2 or 3 of these. These are just little turn wheels. You're working them slowly. You're not throwing on a wheel. We were talking about when I was using things out of the drawer to use the stamps. There are all kinds of things that make wonderful impressions. This is a roller off of calculator that has white paper. Okay.
That's great.
This is a piece of coral. Nature has lots of wonderful things. I brought this to roll out with. My rolling pin is about this big. I have a great big, huge baker's rolling pin when I do some slab work. And some of those flat pieces, or the piece that, the wedding piece, the outer piece, are slabbed out to start with. I've even carved pencil erasers. This is a little star at the end of here to stamp. These are my dental tools that I use. Okay. And this is how some of them look. Some of the, you can pass those around. I think that, you know what I think that is? I think that's probably a pin, you know, with the, yeah, up, you know, or maybe even with a little point down, I don't know. Maybe first a pin not projected and then projected in the middle to make the other little designs.
It was hard, that was a last for a long time.
Okay.
Did you make that? You made that initially, the
Yeah,
last.
yeah. This is my scraper that I use. When I'm making coils, in between the coils, I put a coil around the pot and I scrape it with a little tooth scraper. For years I just used to use a comb, but they break on occasion, and these don't. So
So, Vina, do you use like a little slip when you're doing the coil thing? Do you use like a little slip or, you know?
if the
whatever?
clay's kind of hard to start with, I do. But if the clay's nice and pliable, it just works. It just works. I think I have some in here that are just very simple, just very simple. And then, oh, okay. Sometimes I'll make one, and then I'll make a negative and a positive, and you can see how they fit each other. And when I make the round part of those with multiple, I'll probably use 6 or 7 or 8 different stamps all the way around, and then another one, and another. And those are fun because you just play. You just, you just have a good time playing. And then sometimes I carve. I think. I'll carve a little face, and I'll pull a negative from that, and then,
Sweet.
Yeah, a little.
Bake them.
Yeah, yeah, it's called bisque. First firing bisque.
You and Jenny out of the street. Yeah, pretty much. We tried our best to leave her alone and let her be creative, and we weren't harassing her. So, yeah.
Did either of you learn any of the,
Yeah, oh yeah, we played. She let us play and all kinds of stuff. We would hand build. We would throw
Yeah,
in the
I've got little things that they made when they were little, and things my grandchildren made, and
hang out that across the street.
when the clay is soft like this, it may not make it all the way to the back of the room, and you just press it in, pull it out.
oh, yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Until my mother
Oh, I love this one. Let's try this one.
She always cooks. She loves to cook. She's an amazing chef.
Do you really make your own pasta?
Yes.
I did.
Oh my God.
See, you just never know.
That's amazing. That's from the adding machine.
Uh-huh.
Look at that. That is incredible. Makes a great pattern.
Yeah.
It is.
So it's fun when you go through, kitchen drawer, like everybody's got a drawer somewhere in their house, a desk or a whatever, that you just throw things in. What is this? I don't know. I'll remember someday, but you never do remember, and the drawer gets fuller and fuller.
Another reason not to throw things away.
I don't ever throw anything away.
No,
She's very artistic.
It was in the
Yeah.
I wanted to just, a couple of things, that I learned from Vina when we were sitting and talking and curating the exhibition. And she was telling me about all of these little tools that she would just get, from the drawer. And I just loved that improvising spirit and the accessibility. I mean, it's fine art and you're an incredible talent, but then also, I think that speaks to how incredible you are, that you can, let me just go to the kitchen drawer and grab this and make something beautiful with it. But that improvising spirit did come in handy. What Vina doesn't know, now she didn't see the exhibit. I've never told her this story. I don't think, maybe I did. I didn't let her see the exhibit until opening night, but I had the door closed and I wouldn't let her in because the 2 days leading up to it, it got really humid in here for some reason. We couldn't figure out, we had the AC technicians here, and so when I had hung the exhibition panels on the wall, right before you arrived, they started dropping off the wall. I thought, oh my goodness, we're about to open this exhibit. And I just stopped and thought, what would Vina do? She would run to the junk drawer, and that's what I did. I got just a big, mass of screws and a drill and just, so that's why they were just screwed right, but I was like, this looks pretty cool actually. So I was channeling my inner Vina, but one of the really funny things that I just has stuck with me from one of our early conversations was, I really didn't know a whole lot about Vina's work when we first met. And so when I saw some of those pots, like the one she's holding in that photo, those 1970s raku pottery, my mind automatically went to Charlie Brown. So I kept asking, was there any artist that influenced you? And I thought maybe she would start talking about Charlie. And she wasn't saying it, and then finally I was like, were you influenced by Charlie Brown at all? And she was like, oh, honey, I influenced him.
That's a great story.
I used to make his glazes for him.
But what I failed to mention in the introduction is that Vina and Rosemary McCorkle and Memphis Wood and Charlie Brown, those four incredible people, co-founded the Mandarin Art Festival, which is coming up this weekend.
They're full.
Founded in 1968, and then we will also be honoring those four individuals at our Miss Aggie Day on May 3rd for just the incredible and indelible mark that they have left on our arts and culture landscape.
We went to Westbury, Judge Westbury, and said, we want to have an art show on Easter Sunday, and nobody's going to come to an art show. So we decided we'd overrule him and we would have it. I don't know if any of y'all have lived out here for years and years. There were a lot of really good painters, long gone now, but yeah. And so we all got together that Easter Sunday and had, in the community house, clubhouse, we had our first art show. Oh, and I don't know whether you remember Elihu Edelson. He was, actually the Times Union had, Elihu was their art columnist. And whatever was happening in the art world in Jacksonville, he would write about. And we told him about it, and he wrote some nice article. And then a lot of times after that, people would start saying, well, how can we get into this show? And that's how it started really evolving. Yeah.
I have a question. So when art historians talk about the studio crafts movement in the United States, they talk about it in terms of it being a response to that mass production following World War II and kind of a critique and, you know, this return to handcrafts and self-expression and creativity. And so I'm curious if, you know, during your career, did you have an awareness of this was a critique against mass production, or were you just doing something that you loved?
Well, you know, I'm one of the ones who started having, when I was the head of ACC, American Craft Council, I said, come on, we need to have some utilitarian stuff in here, because it's not really mass produced. If it is the potter sitting at his wheel making 20 whatever pictures, whatever, but he is making those pictures. Some machine is not making. So we started having beautiful stuff, casseroles and things like that, that in the very beginning were like almost snobby, that they didn't want the people who were doing that kind of stuff. And the same way with wooden bowls, you know, beautiful wood and stuff, and they were making salad bowls, and yeah, they belong in a museum. That's an artist just like anybody else who's doing whatever they're doing. Yeah, I wasn't in the after 40, because I wasn't in the 40s. I was born in the 30s, but in the 40s I was still a little kid, so you know I wasn't involved in some of the really greats during that time that started Black Mountain College near Asheville.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah, really wonderful people there in music and in everything. And they were right after the war years. They were, you know, I don't think there's anybody left.
Got a question going back to the ornament you made for the White House. I know it's a picture. How tall or how big was that actual ornament? Oh, that was.
It was the same size. Yeah, it's almost maybe a little bit small, maybe a little bit shorter. Yeah, you can't get it too heavy because you don't know how heavy the branch is.
Right.
Yeah, and so the clay's a little thinner too. Normally, when you're making pottery, you have to think, what is this going to be used for? If it's going to be used in the kitchen and they're going to be stirring it with a whisk, it needs to be a little heavier. If it's going to be ornamentation on it and this, that, and the other, the walls can be a little bit thinner. You know, if it's going to be very big, you don't want it real thin. Somebody hit it, knock it over, goodbye pot, or you know, whatever the piece is. So yeah, you have to think about all of that also while you're making whatever you're making. And my big pots in there, I always think about them. This is really weird, and I don't know why, but I always think about them as floor pots. I never think about them like in the middle of a table, because they take up too much room on the table. So I always think about them, they'll be like you know, on a fireplace hearth, or there might be in a big shelf somewhere. But if you're going to walk around them, not everybody's got beautiful stands for them to put on. So I make them heavier, because I know that if they tip or get banged around a little bit, they're not going to break to 1,000 pieces. But if you're making a mug, you don't want it full of coffee so you can't lift it up on
But it's really how you make that pot. The one that's like round and then has the little on top and the bottom. Is it slabs? Remember the one in there that I asked you how you make it?
Oh.
You said you were going to tell us out here.
Yeah. What I do is I start out with a round slab, well, sometimes I don't even start with a slab, I just start with a big piece of clay, and then I do all the stamp designs and see how far I go before I get totally carried away, and then take and cut around circle, and then turn it over, and then build maybe a coil or two, make 2 of them, and so that there's a front and a back. And then, and I want them wide enough to have enough coils in them, excuse me, so that I can put a spout on them and a foot. Yeah. Okay.
Everybody can go sign up at Penland in North Carolina and take clay.
Oh, when we decided, we got to the point for American Craft Council that we couldn't get volunteers, because all of my board members were 2 people from each one of the 11 southeastern states, and they used to pay their way to everything. Of course, they got to go to everything and not have to pay for anything that they went to. And we try to keep our costs of our conferences way, way, way down so anybody can go and stuff like that. And then we had a hard time getting people didn't want to volunteer anymore. I mean, it got to be a telephone talking to world, and like, don't bother me. Maybe my mother did that, but I'm not doing that kind of thing, or my dad or whatever. And so we decided, okay, we couldn't, I used to have a lineup of universities and galleries that wanted to have our show and have our conference. And it got to where maybe one person, and then they weren't really sure whether they could do it and all that kind of stuff. And so we had, supposed to not have any money left because we told everybody that we didn't have any money, but we did. I think my treasurer went to the races or something, but we ended up with $40,000, and we said, okay, what are we going to do with this? And we decided we'd split it in half, and the 2 places that had us the most times, we would give them to them with the stipulation that they don't spend it on stupid things. They spend it on equipment for their studios or whatever. And one was Penland, and the other one was Aramont. And Aramont actually had a thing going on at the time where they were trying to get matching grant money, and some big company, and they never told me who, said that they would match us 3 to 1.
Wow.
Yeah. And they took all that money and put it in scholarship funds.
Wonderful.
And they put it in some kind of, I don't know, something that they got the interest for scholarship, and a perpetual fund to give scholarships. And Penland used it to buy, more looms or wheels or repair kilns or do whatever they wanted it for. But both of those schools are really good.